Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I am going to be talking about intuitive eating again, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about my journey specifically when it comes to intuitive eating. I have been such a huge proponent of intuitive eating for so long and have talked about it here and there on my channel for a while. I just recently uploaded a video all about intuitive eating, you know, what it is, what the basics of it are, and I definitely want to keep this conversation going here on my channel. I want to help equip you guys as best I can to start your own journey to becoming an intuitive eater. I truly believe that it is the only way to lead not only a healthy lifestyle, but a happy, satisfied, fulfilling one as well. So I just can't rave enough about it. And it is very individual, kind of how you become an intuitive eater. It is not a diet or a meal plan where you can just go on autopilot and just follow exactly what someone else is telling you. It is all about tapping into your own body and learning all about yourself and your own cues and what your body needs and wants. So it's definitely a journey, and it's not something that you can have specific instructions for to follow, you know, A to Z, but I definitely want to just keep this conversation going here on my channel to try and help you guys as much as possible on this journey. Okay, so I thought this would be a good place to kind of start, just to tell you guys about my journey, because it has definitely been a journey. It didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't necessarily easy. So just a little bit of background before I get into like the whole story. I never, luckily, had any kind of disordered eating patterns or battled with any kind of eating disorders, which I feel very blessed not to have walked that struggle, because it is unfortunately so commonplace in our society today, especially in women, as men as well, in men as well. But man, it's just a tough place to be a lady these days. There are so many pressures put on us to be perfect and to look a certain way and to eat a certain way, and it's just a lot. So I definitely feel lucky to not have had an eating disorder or anything of the sort, but I certainly for years and years and years had food rules that either were created by me in my own head or society, or from, you know, my nutrition knowledge from studying it for so many years. So I definitely had food rules in my head that I abided by, and that definitely limited me and also affected me in a negative way when it comes to eating not only healthy but also in a way that satisfies you. So aside from having, you know, all these food rules in my head for years, I also just I was not in touch with my body at all. Like, we were my mind and body, I felt like they were two separate entities. Of course they were communicating, but I never felt like they were. When it came to food, I always growing up had a huge appetite. I always loved food, and I would always just overeat. Not to the point where it really fluctuated my weight too much. That was never really something that I struggled with. My weight has been pretty consistent, you know, through the years, but I would always just be uncomfortably stuffed all the time. I didn't understand, I didn't know how to stop when I felt satisfied. I just didn't ever learn that. Ever since I can remember, I always overate and was just always so stuffed, and I just didn't understand how to regulate that in a way that didn't feel restrictive. So that was definitely something that I always dealt with. I just remember like coming home after school every day and just sitting in front of the TV and just eating mindlessly, like just so many snacks, and just not even really paying attention to what I was eating, just knowing that I was hungry and just grabbing whatever was available. There was a lot of that. And also, like, I remember always around the holidays, when it came to like all of the Christmas cookies and the desserts and like all of just the amazing delicious food, not only at the gatherings themselves, but then all the leftovers in the house, I just felt like I had no control, and I know why now. It's because I kept telling myself that I wasn't supposed to be eating those things, so it just made it so much harder to resist. And then when I did give in, it was just like no one could stop me. So just definitely a lot of being unable to regulate how much I was eating in a way that felt comfortable and satisfying. So going back to the beginning, so when I was in high school, that was when I really started to become interested in nutrition. I have, since high school, always just been so fascinated by nutrition, and especially the science behind it and how that interacts with you know, biology and physiology. I just think that it is so fascinating. So that interest really started to bloom when I was in high school. I remember going to like Barnes and Nobles. I think it was Borders actually back then, the bookstore around my house, and just like getting nutrition books about just all the different vitamins and minerals, and it was just so fascinating. I just couldn't get enough. So I definitely started to eat healthier in high school, and I noticed that when I ate healthier, I just felt, you know, different. I felt better, and I wasn't crazy about it or anything. I just became really interested in it, and then also just kind of innocently found that, oh, when I eat healthier, I feel better. And also when I was in high school, I think it was when I was a sophomore, I decided that I was going to become a vegetarian, and I did, and I was a vegetarian for a long time. It's actually like 6 years, and I felt very happy as a vegetarian. I enjoyed it. I had no it wasn't like I had like a mental battle to try and stay vegetarian. I was just happy being that way. Looking back now, hindsight is 2020, I had the worst, awful digestion during that whole time that I was a vegetarian, and somewhat after too. I think just all of just like the roughage, like so many fruits and vegetables I was eating, and also just so many nuts and seeds. I would snack on them all the time, and like those were my protein sources. And all through college I didn't really have access to like eggs and things like that, so I was just eating like tons of nuts and seeds, and I had awful, I mean, I don't think there was a day in like those 6 years where I wasn't like insanely bloated all the time. And of course people can thrive off of those diets and feel amazing, but that was just like, it didn't work very well with my body. So then my senior year of college, that was when things really started to change. Like I said, I never dealt with any disordered eating really, just had like food rules, and a lot of times would feel like I lost control around food and just would overeat. Not to the point where it was like a binge eating disorder. That is more like specified, planned out times where you're going to binge, and you binge like a day's worth of calories. That was not the wheelhouse that I was in. It was just generally just always eating too much to the point where I was uncomfortable, and it kind of just stopped there. But anyway, so my senior year of college is when things started to change. So it was around this time that it must have been like in my classes. I think it was when I started learning about, if you guys have ever heard of Ellen Satter, she's like a child feeding specialist, and I think it was my senior year where we started learning about her, and it was just talking about how to be a competent, how to teach your children to be competent eaters. And that was what really kind of brought about this like, oh, like I'm not a competent eater. Like I don't know when to stop. I just, you know, I'm not at all. And intuitive eating was not a thing. This was like 4 years ago now, so intuitive eating was not really like a thing like it is a buzzword now, but I just wanted to be a competent eater, and I also wanted to be more mindful. Whenever I would eat, I would completely zone out. I would take my mind out of the equation and I would just eat. I was not mindful whatsoever, and therefore I didn't feel like I was a very competent eater. So this is when I kind of started to go on this journey of basically becoming an intuitive eater, except it wasn't called that then, or I wasn't calling it that then. And I even remember it all started like with just meal times, where I would just become more focused on actually eating, and instead of zoning out, scrolling through my phone and watching TV and just kind of mindlessly eating, I really forced myself to bring my mind into it and make it a mindful, you know, activity. So I can still remember like sitting at our little like plastic dining room table our senior year of college in our house, and I remember I would like put my phone to the side and be like, I'm not gonna look at my phone, I'm just going to pay attention to what I'm eating. I'm going to just focus on the meal, think about how it tastes, think of, you know, the different, like pay attention to the mouth feels of the different foods that I was eating, and really just concentrate on eating. And it really opened up this whole new world where I was truly able to get in touch with my hunger and fullness cues. And it really, I mean, it took time, guys. It's not something that like a switch you can switch on and off. It takes a lot of practice and perseverance, because it is easy just to ditch all of that and just go mindless and sit in front of the TV and eat and not pay attention. But so that was definitely when things started to change, and I started to get in touch with those cues to the point where I could employ them like at meal times, but it wasn't necessarily like this full-on lifestyle change by any means. But I definitely just learned how to have more sensory experiences when it came to eating, and just savoring food more. And again, like I said, not going on autopilot and just shutting my brain off, and just truly being mindful of eating experiences so that I could you know, have the opportunity to feel or, you know, experience some kind of cues that my body was trying to send me that I was always just completely ignoring, and they were bouncing right off of my mind for years and years. So this was all starting to take place my senior year, and then I remember at the end of my senior year was when I just one day just decided to stop being vegetarian. And it really wasn't like this big decision, something that I really like mulled over. It really was just one day I just started craving meat again, and I felt like all of the meals, the vegetarian meals that I loved and enjoyed so much, I just felt like they were really missing something, and I just wasn't enjoying them anymore like I was before. So I just, as you know, like I said, during this time I was really trying to get in touch with my body and listen to what it was telling me, and I just felt like, okay, I feel like this is my body telling me that it's time to maybe move on and do something different with my diet, structure it a little differently, and that's exactly what I did. So yeah, it wasn't like some big decision, it just kind of happened, and then I never really looked back. And I would say that my digestion did improve a little bit at this time. Like I said, it was always pretty awful. I never felt good as far as digestion goes. It did improve a little bit, but it wasn't until like a few years later that it like drastically improved, and that was because I was no longer in situations that stressed me out beyond belief. So for me, I do think that I definitely believe that a lot of my digestion issues and why it didn't work, you know, the way it was designed to, was heavily tied to stress. So then my intuitive eating journey just kind of continued. I feel like after probably like a few solid months of just being very conscious about trying to be mindful when eating, not to the point where it was obsessive, but you know, when I would sit down for a meal, I would be like, all right, like let's, you know, really pay attention to what we're doing so that I can learn to get in touch with these cues. After doing that for, I don't know, maybe like 4 to 6 months or something like that, I don't really remember, I felt like I really had a much better grip on it, and to the point where I felt like I had mastered at least like being able to pay attention to my cues. I'm not saying that I followed them like they were gospel. I mean, there were still definitely times where I would overeat and feel uncomfortable, but I felt like it was just a win knowing that I could sense them, you know, because before I had zero, I was not in touch with them at all.
Come on, you wanna come up? Come on, sweet. Yeah, you come lay down. Go ahead, get comfy. Yeah, oh, you're so sweet. You wanna lay down? Go ahead, lay down. Go ahead. Oh, you're so good. Yeah, you're so good. Just take a nap, okay?
And then as far as the food rules that I always had, just in my head, they never really had anything to do with like restriction. I never really was hyper focused at all, or focused really at all at like restricting the amount of food that I ate, especially once I got more in touch with like my hunger and fullness cues. However, I definitely had a lot of rules in my head that I you know, lived by, as far as like what foods were good and what foods were bad. So that was definitely something that really ruled the way that I lived, like, you know, avoiding refined carbs and avoiding sugar. Not saying that I never cut anything out except for when I was a vegetarian. Never cut anything out because I always just viewed that as extreme, but I still did have these rules in my head of like, that's going to cause you inflammation and you shouldn't eat that and blah 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 blah. So a lot of this kind of like internal dialogue that was always going on in my head. I never really was one to dabble in like all of the different popular diets that were happening. I feel very fortunate that I was always around just really amazing professors as well as RDs that always just preached balance and moderation and that everything fits, and to focus on like a healthy, you know, long lifestyle, like longevity versus just like being really restrictive now. So I do feel really fortunate about that. However, there was one time that I still remember that I was like, all right, I'm gonna try this whole counting macros thing. Lasted for about 2 days. And you know, I did the whole MyFitnessPal, and I obviously, at this point, I was already an RD, or I was in my internship, so I was like fully aware of how to calculate different, you know, carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and what the different ranges were for each macronutrient. That was like, you know, cake. So I'm like, all right, well, let me calculate what, you know, I would be and just see how it goes, like whatever. This is when like weightlifting and just like all of like the bikini models on Instagram, at least in my social media life, really started picking up, and everyone got really obsessed with counting macros and weightlifting, and I definitely fell into that. But I specifically remember sitting on my bed when I used to live at my parents' house, and I had like 200 grams of carb left for the day or something. So I just remember sitting there eating like a dry bowl of Cheerios, and it was like at 9 o'clock at night, and I was just like, what am I doing? This is so stupid. I'm not hungry, but here I am at 9 o'clock at night when I always went to bed early, so that was like basically my bedtime. Here I am eating dry Cheerios, which I don't enjoy, B, I have no desire to eat right now, I'm not hungry at all, and C, the only reason I'm doing this is because some stupid calculation told me that I should. Like, no, this is so dumb. So that was then over. So that was pretty much the only like diet thing I really dabbled in. Other than that, I was always, you know, had a mindset of like balance and moderation. However, while I was really good at tapping into, you know, my hunger and fullness cues, and the more time went by, just the better I got with that, I definitely still was living with those food rules for a long time. I mean, up until probably even like a year, maybe even like 6 months ago. I mean, I still was very, everything had to be like, not everything, but unless it was like the holidays or something like that, like pretty much everything had to be healthified, like a healthy recipe, healthy desserts, things like that, just to the point where everything had to be healthy, or I just like wasn't gonna eat it because I wanted to be healthy. But finally, you know, it definitely took time, but I was able to just completely like sever the ties, which makes it sound like it happened really quickly. It did not. But I was able to just get rid of that relationship between like food and morality, because they should never be linked. If you feel guilt, or you feel like eating some kind of food is bad and eating other kind of food is good, that is just not a good space to be mentally, and it's not something where you can live with that the rest of your life and also be extremely fulfilled and happy. Because here's the thing, guys, we want what we can't have. That is like, everybody knows that, right? So if you tell yourself like, oh, you can't eat that for X, Y, and Z, or you must like really eat that in very small moderation because it's not good for you, it's just gonna make you want it more, right? You're gonna focus on what you can't have. But trust me when I say, when you just lift all of the food rules, everything you've ever been taught when it comes to food and telling you what you can and cannot do, or should and should not do, once you just abolish all of that, poof, it's gone. It gets so much easier. Now when it comes to eating like, you know, unhealthy foods, whether that's Christmas cookies around Christmas time, or chocolate covered pretzels, that's like one of the things that I always used to eat so many of, I couldn't stop, or just like going out to dinner and like just anything. Now I'm just kind of like, oh, I want a little bite of that, and like that's all I need to feel satisfied. Whereas before I would just say like, oh, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that, and then that one time that I did say like, okay, I'm gonna have it, it was just like the floodgates were open and my control went out the window. But when you tell yourself like, I mean, I could literally have whatever I want, there are no rules, it just melts away the anxiety, and the internal dialogue completely dissipates, and it just gets so much easier. Like, you're just truly not thinking about it, and food is just not something that's on your mind. Like, I love food, I love to eat, it's one of my favorite things to do, but it's just not something I think about. Like, I think about it while I'm physically enjoying food, and like that is about it. And other than like, you know, trying to plan out what we're gonna eat for the week, not in like a meal planning diet way, but just like I need to get groceries so I can make dinner kind of way. And I found that once I've ditched all of the rules and became, you know, essentially way more lenient when it comes to eating unhealthy foods, I still totally crave real wholesome foods. Like, that's generally still what I want to eat most of the time. And if you're at a place where you're like, okay, I need to start intuitive eating and I need to ditch the diet mentality and stop restricting myself, or telling that, you know, having that internal dialogue, you might go a little crazy in the beginning. You might, because if all you do is live by rules and then you get rid of the rules, it's like, hell yeah, like party time, which that's okay. Like, that might happen to you. But trust me when I say, like, your body's gonna regulate itself. When you allow your body to take back the reins and you just completely subtract the willpower and the mind control from the situation and like let go of the reins and let your body just do its thing, it's gonna figure itself out and it's gonna regulate, and you're gonna get to a place where your body is so happy because your body is gonna be in control. It's gonna have the steering wheel and it's gonna direct you to where it's going to feel its best. And honestly, like, there's certain like unhealthy foods that I could literally probably go the rest of my life without and be totally fine. Because like I said, I love real whole food. That doesn't mean that I don't eat chocolate chip cookies and cheesecake and pizza and french fries sometimes and ice cream. Oh god, I love ice cream. But there are definitely like certain foods that like I could go the rest of my life without. Like, for example, Oreos. Everyone freaking loves Oreos. I could honestly go the rest of my life without having an Oreo and I would be fine. But if someone sat down next to me right now and said, Rebecca, you have to swear on your life that for the rest of your life, you are never going to eat another Oreo. What do you think I'm gonna do? That's gonna give me anxiety. I'm gonna be like, oh my God, I'm never gonna ever have an Oreo again. All of a sudden I'm thinking about Oreos when before I wasn't thinking about them at all. I could care less about Oreos. And now what am I gonna wanna do is go eat like a whole box of Oreos because you told me I can't. I'm now thinking about it, it's on my mind. But again, like I said, remove the rules and all of those anxieties and all of those little hyper focuses you have on food, they just dissipate. Now, I do want to say one thing kind of along with that. I definitely have, like I said, I've removed all of the food rules and the morality around food, and I just like to listen to my body and what it tells me. But that doesn't mean that I don't still have like beliefs around food. Beliefs and rules are totally different. So when it comes to my food beliefs, like I definitely believe in eating real whole food as much as possible and nourishing the body, because I obviously understand how important it is to nourish your body. Nutrition is key. It's not the end all be all. You could have the most spectacular diet in the world and like still get hit by a car or still get cancer. Like, it's not the only thing in life, but it is a piece of the puzzle, and I do think that it's important. I think it's important to eat real whole foods. I think it's important to think about where your food comes from, like, you know, grass-fed meat and dairy and all of that, like all of those little things, like trying to eat organic as much as I can. I do definitely have beliefs around food, but when it comes to like the dieting mindset, that is the stuff that I've just completely abolished. When you remove the rules and you truly just let your body take the reins and you listen to what it's telling you and then you eat accordingly, you can enjoy your life, but also have a happy, healthy body. And it is just like, when you get to that place, it is the most freeing thing in the whole world. And I'm coming from a place where I wasn't even really that chained by my food convictions or rules or whatever. So if you are someone who is really struggling with something like this, I mean, you have got even more to gain from this experience. And let me tell you, it is one of the best gifts that you can give yourself. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to live the most fulfilling life that you can. And don't let all of these, I know it's hard, of course, and it takes work, but don't let all of these rules that you've manufactured in your own head dictate your life. You know, you deserve to be happy. Like, screw that. It's just not worth it. So trust me, get rid of the rules, listen to your body, start this journey. It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I'm on what, 4 years now? It probably took a solid 3 years for me to get to a point where I was pretty happy. And the last year I've just been living in like pure bliss as far as food and body happiness goes. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a journey. It takes a long time. It doesn't happen overnight, but it, you guys, is so worth it. And also, please, if you take anything from this video other than start intuitive eating and ditch the diets, it is give yourself grace, because like I said, this is a journey. It doesn't happen quickly, and it's obviously not going to be perfect. Journeys are never a straight road. They're always windy, and there's detours and there's cutoffs and roadblocks and all of that. But that's okay, you know, that's normal. So give yourself some grace and just do the best that you can every day and keep working towards that goal of just that freeing, never living by any kind of food rules, just zero diets, all of that crap out the window. Just focus on that. That is your end goal, and it is like the best kind of goal to have. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching and for listening to my story. And if you guys are enjoying the videos here on my channel, I would absolutely love for you to subscribe and join my little community here on YouTube. And you can also follow me over on my Instagram if you want to hang out on there as well. But yeah, that is it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!